From KPRC TV, where local news comes first, this is News 2 Houston Daybreak at 5:30.
Good morning and welcome back to News 2 Houston Daybreak on this Monday, May 21st.
In the headlines, police are warning motorists this morning to buckle up or face the consequences. We'll have the latest in a live report.
But first to our big story. If you don't wear your seatbelt, this morning is the day to start.
That's because more than 10,000 law enforcement agencies around the nation will be setting up checkpoints. This comes in light of a report by the National Safety Council giving a third of the state's poor highway safety marks.
News 2 Houston Daybreak reporter Ken Stinson joins us live with more on that and a look at how Texas fares in the report. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning. Well, Texas ranks second when it comes to people who die in crashes on our roadways. Well, this week, officers say there's an easy way for all of us to change that, and they're going to give us more incentive to wear one of these. Pull down your shoulder strap and lock it in. The law enforcement officers are looking to pull over those who don't.
So we're seeing a lot of people who are not using seat belts and also who are not restraining children in the proper way.
Police will be on seatbelt patrol from now until Memorial Day. Forget to strap down yourself or your child, and it could cost you time and a ticket fine.
Most people who don't put their seatbelt on don't put their seatbelt on because they think, oh, I won't be in an accident or I won't be in a collision. It won't happen to me.
The National Safety Council study shows that most accidents happen on short trips. People on their way home are traveling within their own neighborhood. It's based on fatality rate surveys, restraint laws. All states were given grades A through F. Texas received a B-.
And the idea that we can put a child in a car and not restrain them in a seat belt or the proper seat is just it just flabbergasts us.
But a different study for the National Safe Kids campaign gave Texas an F when it comes to restraining children. The biggest reason is there are no rules for using booster seats for kids 4 through 8.
Add new legislation, say make it mandatory for kids 4 to 8 to be in a booster seat, and I think that would help.
And there's no way to avoid this crackdown. It is nationwide, and a part of this survey showed that 17 states got Ds and Fs. We're live in Southwest Houston. I'm Ken Stinson.
So, Ken, did any of the states get A's?
One state did. California got an A. New Mexico got an A-.
Okay, very good.
That's kind of a surprise, isn't it?
You're watching News 2 Houston at 5 with Dominic Satsa, Cambrell Marshall, Chief Meteorologist Frank Billingsley's AccuWeather, and Chris Racky with sports, where local news comes first.
I'm outside in the News 2 Houston studios now, where many of us are going to be getting in our cars and starting to drive home in a little while. If you are as well, you need to be aware of something. The police are starting to crack down on people who aren't buckling up. It's a part of a nationwide crackdown before the Memorial Day holiday, trying to save lives. Now, in 1999 alone, 19,000 people were killed nationwide because they were unrestrained. 3,000 of those were children. Now it pushes on to change all that. A scene all too familiar in Houston, a car crash that takes the life of someone not wearing a seatbelt. But a national effort is trying to change that. It's National Buckle Up Week, a police crackdown of drivers who don't wear seatbelts and don't buckle up children. We found several unrestrained children in cars in 1 hour's time.
He actually doesn't have a car seat because I thought he was old enough.
Would you ever ride with him without a car seat?
I guess you can blame me for that. I have, but not anymore.
I asked you all to get involved where we can curtail a lot of this killing that we have because of no seat belts.
From now until Memorial Day, police throughout the country will set up checkpoints and increase patrols.
I know the national goal through this week is to try to get compliance up to 80%. They're trying to move it up 3%. We're hoping we can do that 3% and better here in Precinct 1.
The crackdown comes the same day a report by the National Safety Council gives Texas a B- for the strength of its seatbelt laws, death rates, and police participation in seatbelt crackdowns. For those involved, it is not about grades, but saving lives.
Please buckle your children so that we don't have to do the thing we dread the most, and that's telling parents that their children are dead.
Well, an exclusive News 2 Houston flash poll shows Houstonians are buckling up. 84% of people asked by Survey USA say they wear their seatbelt every time. 8% say they wear one more of the time, most of the time actually. 5% say they wear one some of the time, and 3% admit they hardly ever wear a seatbelt.
Now, 11 News This Morning.
Time is now 5:31. Time to get you up to the minute with other stories that are making news now. Today is National Seatbelt Safety
the kickoff of Safety Week, and a report by the National Safety Council gives more than a third of states a below-average grade for their efforts to protect against highway deaths. The study found that people use belts more often in the District of Columbia and 17 states that allow officers to stop and ticket unbuckled motorists. More than 10,000 U.S. law enforcement agencies across the country will have increased patrols today through Memorial Day. And here in Houston, 10 billboards will be put up to serve as a reminder to drivers.
In the spirit of Texas, you're watching 11 News at noon.
It's National Seatbelt Week, and advocates of tougher seatbelt laws say more needs to be done to get people to buckle up. 10 billboards are going up in Houston reminding motorists to buckle up for every trip, every time. This one was unveiled on North Shepherd this morning, but there's another warning going out to motorists who say they buckle up but may still be at risk. The pathology report indicated 28-year-old Lena Dickerson died from a crushed chest and lacerated liver. She was wearing a seatbelt when her 1991 Mazda was struck by another vehicle. Ironically, her 3 children, who all survived, were not wearing seatbelts.
I look back at it, it could have been a whole lot worse. Because if my kids would have been restrained, they might have been killed too.
Dickerson's Mazda was equipped with a passive restraint system where the shoulder harness automatically goes into place, but the lap belt has to be buckled. Dickerson had not.
If you're not wearing the lap belt in one of these systems, it places all these loads on the chest, especially for women, and it can lacerate the liver, blow out your heart, or you can go underneath the belt.
About 10 million drivers have cars with this type of restraint system.
As you see, the belt runs along a track along the top of the door frame.
But statistics show only half of drivers with these systems are buckling up the lap belt.
The belt is there, and the belt is there for a reason to be used.
It's been 7 years since Dennis Dickerson lost his wife. Still, his message is the same.
If I see people that I don't even know, if I come out of the store or wherever I'm at, if I see them with that seatbelt in there, I let them know, hey, put that lap belt on.
Safety experts say no matter what kind of belt system your car has, first, you have to use it.
Okay, get in, put your seatbelt on.
Second, you have to use it right.
A new report says most states aren't doing enough to promote seatbelt use. The National Safety Council graded states based on their efforts to prevent highway deaths. Texas scored a B-. 19 states were given a grade of D or F. Now, starting today through Memorial Day, 10,000 law enforcement agencies across the country will step up patrols and institute checkpoints to make sure people are wearing their seatbelts. And that is your Focus on Health for this Monday morning.
Well, buckle up is certainly a message we've been hearing for years, but now it could cost you money. That is why there is a nationwide effort underway to increase public awareness. This is National Seatbelt Week. In 1999 only, 3,000 of the people killed in traffic accidents were children.
Please buckle your children so that we don't have to do the thing we dread the most, and that's telling parents that their children are dead.
Well, now during National Seatbelt Week, motorists driving in Precinct One, that's inside the city, will see billboards like this one. It's a reminder to let you know every trip, every time, buckle up. And just to bring home the point, deputies in Precinct One are now working extra hours looking for people who don't have their seatbelts on, and it could cost you plenty.
This is Fox 26 News, 6 a.m.
Police across the nation begin a crackdown on folks not using their seatbelts. Police across the country are beginning a week-long crackdown on drivers who don't wear seatbelts and buckle up kids. More than 10,000 law enforcement agencies will have checkpoints and increased patrols today through Memorial Day. This comes as advocates of tougher seatbelt laws give more than a third of the states a below-average grade for their efforts to protect against highway deaths. Law officers across the country are launching a week-long crackdown on people who don't buckle up. The effort comes as the National Safety Council releases a study on seatbelt laws. It gives more than a third of states a below-average grade for their efforts to protect against highway deaths. Texas ranked in the middle of the pack with a B-.
This
This is Fox 26 News 1230.
We can't say it enough, buckling up saves lives.
And from safety in our schools to safety in our cars, we can all reduce the risks with a simple click of a seatbelt. Darian Ward is live in Southwest Houston with why this National Seatbelt Safety Week should be in effect every week of the year. Good afternoon, Darian.
Good afternoon, Fran. You know, I did a little survey this morning as we were driving around, peeking into people's cars to see if they were buckled up. The majority, 2 to 1, were buckled up, but there were quite a few people who were taking unnecessary chances.
For stopping you is I noticed that the kids were walking around in the vehicle as you were traveling.
An unrestrained 2-year-old and 6-year-old in the back seat, so this woman gets a citation. Expect to see more police officers and constables peeking into your vehicle this week. It's part of a national program for Buckle Up America Week.
We usually have about 6 officers off duty working specifically to try to get people to comply wearing their seatbelts, and most importantly, their children.
Excuse me, can we try this strap? You've heard it before, seatbelts save lives. In 1999, motor vehicle occupant restraints saved the lives of more than 11,000 people nationwide. An additional 10,000 lives could have been saved if all passengers had buckled up.
Working traffic for several years, I get different excuses. I think a lot of it is that they cry. And sometimes I feel that they instead of dealing with the child crying, then having a quiet car instead of seatbelting a child in. And that's a very common excuse. And busy. If you notice people now, they're at their cell phones, their pagers. There's a lot of things going on in that vehicle that did not used to be going on in vehicles years ago.
10 of these billboards have been placed in Precinct One to remind people about their obligation. They were donated by local businesses, and a federal grant will send this constable out on a special mission.
Child seats can be confusing. How you put them on, how you strap them in. You hear all the time about recalls. You hear all the time about children and airbags in the front. All this education, we give pamphlets from the government has granted us, and that's very important because we're not only talking to the parents, but we're talking to the kids. And I've had kids come and tell their moms and dads, hey, we need to buckle up.
Now, the National Safety Council gives Texas a grade of a C for our efforts to protect against highway deaths. More than 10,000 law enforcement agencies all across the U.S. will be out patrolling, making sure you are buckled up. Reporting live in Southwest Houston, Darian Ward, Fox 26 News.
This is Fox 26 News at 9.
By now, it should be routine. When you get in your car, you buckle up your kids and yourself.
If you don't, you could get caught by law officers this week who are cracking down on people who don't buckle up. Fox 26's Darian Ward reports.
The reason for stopping you is I noticed that the kids were walking around in the vehicle as
There's no excuse not to buckle up, especially when you consider the alternative. This young mother gets a citation and a warning. Every trip, every time, buckle up. It's the slogan for Buckle Up America Week. So expect to see more law officers peeking into your car and checking on your kids.
Working traffic for several years, I get different excuses. I think a lot of it is that they cry. And sometimes I feel that they instead of dealing with the child crying, then having a quiet car instead of seatbelting a child in. And that's a very common excuse. And busy. If you notice people now, they're at their cell phones, their pagers. There's a lot of things going on in that vehicle that did not used to be going on in vehicles years ago.
In 1999, nearly 19,000 unrestrained drivers and passengers died in traffic crashes. More than 3,000 of them were children. On the other hand, more than 11,000 lives were saved because of seatbelts. To remind people of their obligation, 10 of these billboards have been placed in Precinct One. They were donated by local businesses, and a federal grant will send this constable out on a special mission.
Child seats can be confusing. How you put them on, how you strap them in. You hear all the time about recalls. You hear all the time about children and airbags in the front. All this education, we give pamphlets from the government has granted us, and that's very important because we're not only talking to the parents, but we're talking to the kids. And I've had kids come and tell their moms and dads, hey, we need to buckle up.
The National Safety Council gives Texas a grade of C for our efforts to protect against highway deaths. Remember, more than 10,000 law agencies will be out and about with increased patrols through Memorial Day. Reporting from Southwest Houston, Darian Ward, Fox 26 News.